Hello, there we go. Hopefully you can all see and hear me. Hello. Welcome to the stream. Thank you for the subscriptions over on Twitch. I am live on Twitch, YouTube, and Patreon. Those are the three. I'm going to attempt to make sure everything's working properly here. Trying to stream on 3 different platforms at the same time is slightly difficult. Especially when I have to do my whole login. Okay. That should be working now. It's not quite, but you know. Where can you watch on YouTube? Hopefully I'm live on YouTube. Hey, there we go. I see a chat in from YouTube. Yes, we are live on YouTube. It's on my YouTube channel if you want to watch it there. I see the Twitch chat coming in. Perfect. Everything is working the way I want. Whoops. All right, so the purpose of this stream today is to do a Q&A for my book, Behind the Mirror. I have been doing a weekly book club, or it's not bi-weekly, right? What is it when it's twice a week? It is bi-weekly, right? Twice a week would be like... Is there an echo? Shouldn't be an echo. They're both bi-weekly. I did twice a week a book club going chapter by chapter through the book in fine detail over on my Patreon. And recently, I don't think it was last week, I think recently we finished up with the final chapters. And so I decided to do one final kind of like book club. This is essentially like the book club Q&A discussion, whatever you want to do here for the book. Obviously, I've answered some questions about the book before, but the idea is you've maybe read the book now. We can talk about the book in detail. Spoilers, if there are any, for a book about the show, are fair game. And that's about it. That's the goal. That's the plan today. Live on Twitch and YouTube so that you guys can have a bit of a book club experience as well. If you are here on Patreon and you would like to call in or do any advanced, discussion, we can hang on at the end of the stream once I shut down YouTube and Twitch. Otherwise, the chat is open for questions, comments, whatever it is that you would like to to do. The stream is really, I have no particular agenda for the book club we did on Patreon. I like, it was hours per chapter, just going through the chapter and kind of like going through my thought process on everything. This is very much more so led by questions on your end. I think we do have a few like discussion points that I never got to in the patron discussions that I had up. But it's essentially just a Q&A stream, which we do occasionally. Just a little more focused than normal. So that's always fun. All right. Already getting a couple of questions in here. Do I find myself reading reviews via Goodreads, or do I tend to avoid? So, for a while, I was reading every single new review on Goodreads. And checking it pretty obsessively. We are now at 4.52 with 1,300 ratings. And I have stopped obsessively checking all of the reviews, I will say. I feel I've kind of accepted that I think we're going to drop below a 4.5 eventually. Basically, like, every week we drop down by a 100th of a point. So, it's going to go down to below a 4.5, I think. However, it's still an incredible rating, and I'm very pleased. But yeah, basically the answer was I definitely was obsessively checking. But, once it's over, it's 1,300 ratings, and it's 367 reviews. Plus, it's got reviews on Amazon, 170 ratings with 59 reviews. It's got an Audible rating, 169 ratings with, I don't know, it doesn't say how many reviews, but it has gotten to the point where I've decided to stop reading every review, which is a good thing, I think, at this. I feel like I'm secure in the fact that a lot of people really liked it and thought it was really good, and that feels really good. That's kind of how I feel. So, yeah, that's about it. What was something interesting that I learned about the show while writing the book that I did not know before? I'm just going to give you off the top of my head the first thing that came to mind. There's a woman named Lisa Levinson. Kind of infamous for her role on The Bachelor. I believe she was a large inspiration in the show Unreal. If you ever watched that show. And I learned, well, not deeply. I was not able to get to the bottom of this because it wasn't important enough to put in the book, but it was like a little fun fact. She worked on season 2 of Big Brother, and in her own sort of bio claims to have been an instrumental part in the format changes for season 2. I don't know how true that is. And like I said, it wasn't something that I was like, oh, I need to get to the bottom of this for the book, because nobody would have cared if you didn't have the context of who she was. And it did not have space in the book to give you the context of who she was. But I thought it was a fun little fact that I found out when I was doing research. What was it like navigating the publishing cycle, knowing that there was another season of Big Brother coming out that you wouldn't have watched in time for the book? It's a good question. So I started writing the book after season 24, and then the book came out after season 27. I had finished writing the book I believe, I actually don't remember now. I'd certainly finished writing the book long before season 26. I don't remember how much of season 25. I think I was still, there were still parts of it that I was writing and or editing. In particular, I think like the farting and butt kicking stuff. I was like, this is so ridiculous that I put into the book. And that's really all of 25 that got added in. But basically, there was a gap of seasons that were missing. And I was okay with that because I felt like 24 was a great place to end anyway. And so the publishing cycle was, you know, theoretically, I'd finished the book around that time. I could have released this at around season. I could have probably released this like for season 25, certainly for season 26. However, the publishing process is very long. And it took a long time to get feedback from the editor. And then make changes, and then back and forth, and then the cover, and then so much stuff. And at the end of it all, I've told this story before, but like there was basically, because the cover took a long time to finalize, the publisher wanted to push the publish date further back than, because I wanted the book to come out like in line with the finale of 27, like ideally around end of September, October, that time period. I thought that would be perfect. It would, you know, coincide with the season. There wouldn't be a gap. I could promote it during the season, so on and so forth. They couldn't make that happen. The earliest they could get was end of November. And then they were like, ooh, about end of November. Don't think that's going to work out well for us. How do you feel about spring 2026? And I was like, no. For many reasons. I had talked to my agent, and basically, I came up with a pitch for why that shouldn't happen. My agent backed me up, and my editor also backed me up. And I basically had to give some data points and some arguments for why that's not a good time to release from on my end. That like I will not be able to promote this book in the same way if it's released in the spring. I can't promote it during 27 over the summer and say it's coming out a year from now. So luckily they heard the arguments. There were some downsides to keeping the date, but it did eventually stick. And it came out in November. Thank God, because it wouldn't even be out yet otherwise. Thank you to all the subscriptions again over on Twitch. By the way, I'm seeing a bunch of them here. Koala, Lindsay, Auntie, Megan, McKinley, Laura, Cookie, Kansas, Brookie, Jason, Becky, Kipper, Jennifer, Clayton, and T-Coy. Jennifer asks, not strictly book related, but how are you doing? I'm doing great, actually. Well, okay. Slight caveat. I'm doing great. Have been doing great. My body is revolting against me at the moment, but prior to like this week, I'd been doing really well. I currently have a slight knee issue and also a slight lat strain and also a massive breakout on my face, which for the sake of your eyes, I've made the lighting darker so it's less obvious. And those are, I mean, it's really the injuries that are more pressing, but oh, and my skin is all over the place, my hands, because of climbing. But I had to take another week off of climbing because of these stupid injuries. But otherwise, you know, very healthy, very happy. I honestly think that the walking may have been the thing that hurt my knee. I think I started walking probably too much, but who knows? But listen, it's I'm 33, and in many ways, I'm pushing my body more than I ever have in my life. So, and I'm prone to injury, as Haley points out. I'm hypermobile, which does have its benefits, especially in climbing. But you know, it happens. Otherwise, though, very good. And we've got some shows coming up too that I'm going to be covering, especially on Patreon. We've got Australian Survivor. We've got House of Villains with Tyson. And we got Survivor 50, which I will be live on Twitch and YouTube for as well on Wednesdays. Okay. Let's see. More questions. How would I sum up the experience since the book has been released? It's very strange. Overall, the experience has been very, like, it was such a big part of my life for multiple years. It was like 3 years in the making. And now it's just kind of like done. In many ways, this is like the final thing that I'm doing. There's probably going to be a couple more things here and there. But like, it's weird that it's over because it's been something that I've been working toward and for so long. So very strange, but I feel very good about it. I feel very like accomplished and proud. And I'm really glad that I did it. It's one of those things that like, it's weird. I don't think there's a lot of them. I think a lot of my life feels dedicated to like just making sure I'm in a good place. And very few things in my life I felt like that was a milestone of like a bucket list item. But this, like having published a book feels like, wow, that's something that I accomplished that I like in my life can look back on and be like, I did that. That was like a lifelong dream that I accomplished. Probably a lot of the other things that I accomplished weren't things that I'd planned. Like my entire career is not something that I ever dreamed of or could have anticipated. So it's hard to feel like it's the culmination of a lifelong dream, but very good, I think, is the overall answer to the question. Is there anyone I wish I would have interviewed in hindsight? Not really. What I discovered, I've talked about this a little bit. What I discovered in the process of writing is that I really thought I would be doing so many interviews. And I did do a bunch of interviews. But I think what I realized through the process was that I don't actually need the interviews. I love the people I talked to. They gave me amazing quotes and insights. But like, I had already talked to most of the people that I could have talked to. I'd already gotten those insights. A lot of the people I talked to were just kind of like restating things for me. And some of the people that I theoretically could have talked to, I think the biggest thing would be more people from production. Now, I have talked to people from production off the record, and I've gotten bits and pieces of information here and there, right? So it's not like I haven't talked to anybody ever. But, there's a world where this book spends a lot more time on production's point of view. And I did try to reach out to Arnold Shapiro. I could not get a hold of him. I didn't try that hard. And when I couldn't get a hold of him, I was kind of like, do I even want to, though? Because I don't really want this book to be about Arnold Shapiro. I don't want this book to be about Alison Grodner. There are some chapters that are kind of from the perspective of production, and interviewing them and having their perspective would be interesting and valuable. But at the same time, it's like, what am I really hoping to get from them? There were people, again, that I have talked to and that I could have talked to that are more, that could have given me more like dirt, like real answers, who don't work for the show anymore, for instance. I had that option available to me. And I decided against it because it was like, it wasn't what I wanted the book to be. I didn't want the book to be like, here's the behind the scenes gossip, here's the official story, what do you think is true? I wanted the book to be about us, about the community, about the viewers, more than almost anything. The viewers and the players. Because those are the people that I know and care about. And so the chapters that were about production were from the perspective of a viewer. More than anything else. And I tried to just give you as much insight as possible from what was publicly available. Because I did not want to get into like he said, she said nonsense, right? So I don't regret not having interviewed production, but there is definitely a version of this book that did go in that direction. It's just not the one that I ended up writing, and not the one that I think I was as interested in doing in the first place. Let's see. Not a book question. Did I watch the CBS Throwback episodes? I did not. I enjoyed the book a lot, learned a lot, was reminded of many memories, made me laugh and cry. Can't stay on here tonight, but wanted to jump on and tell you how much. Thank you so much, Paul. I hope I caught you before you left. How are the hands holding up with the climbing? They were doing great, but I've ripped a few times now. This is healing. I don't know if I can get this. This was an open wound for a while, but it's now healing. I've got this on my hand that's still, it's not really painful anymore, but it's got that like itchy feeling because it's like healing, It's very annoying. That was a stupid one. I just banged it as I was going up for a big dyno. But I'm really enjoying the climbing. I'm really I think I'm stronger than ever because I've really been practicing overhang stuff more. on top of all the slab that I do. And I feel like I've really improved as a climber, both strength-wise and technique-wise, and I'm feeling good about it. I had one of those moments recently where there was like a climber in the gym who like was not a beginner, like a good climber who was working on a hard problem. And he came up to me and was like, "Hey, you mind if I ask you, like, how do you do this move on this boulder?" And I was like, "Oh, no worries, bro." And I was like, he came to me. he just, I mean, it was because he saw me doing harder ones, but like, you know, felt good. Yeah, I do. I think I have one of those patches on right now, actually. Let me tell you, this looked gnarly before I put that patch on. Patreon seems like it'll be full of value in March. That's the plan. We got tons coming up. There's always stuff happening, by the way. We're doing Beast Games and the Traders US right now. We just wrapped up Traders UK, and I'm always doing the Genius, which will eventually turn into something else. I'm also right now trying to do some prep work for the Big Brother season, which is, I know, a long time away, but like basically during the Big Brother season, it was really hard to keep up with the Patreon videos. So what I'm doing is I'm trying to go back to some older seasons of things like Traders UK, Survivor Australia. This is my plan, at least, and sort of record some, like just batch record some of those while I've got a little more time right now, so that there won't be a gap in content on the Patreon during Big Brother. Hopefully free me up a little bit. So, and then also just in general, like it'll be good to have some stuff because content comes and goes. Like I'm saying, there's 3 big shows about to happen all at once. Next week is going to be wild. Am I going to cover the live feeds the rest of my life? I mean, for as long as they're going, I imagine. All right, let me check a couple of Patreon questions. Was there a chapter I struggled writing / finishing? It's a good question. I think the chapter I struggled with the most, there's probably, I think there's 3. No, there's 2. One is the Kaser chapter, Community. It was the first chapter that I wrote after selling the book. It had been a while since I wrote the first 3 chapters. So I was coming back in for the first time. And instead of feeling like the world is my oyster, I can write whatever I want, I felt like I've really locked myself into this format. I also felt ill-equipped to talk about the community in the early days because I was so young, even though I was like vaguely aware of it, especially in the days of like Kaser and Jennifer. I was not really aware of it in the days of like Dr. Will. And so I reached out to Hamster Watch. She was super helpful. I did a bunch of research. And so like getting back into the book was like a process. And then the final chapter. The final chapter was hard because I didn't know what to say. Like I felt like there were so many threads that I just wanted to like tie. And it was like my last chance to really tell people what I had been trying to say the whole book. And it ended up being very like flow of consciousness. And I was worried that it was a little too all over the place because of that. Very different chapter than the rest. And I also had no idea how to end the book, and then it just kind of ended. So those are 2 of the hardest ones, I would say. Enjoyed the flashbacks to the seasons, the backstories. One in particular is, you know, the backstory of Dan and how he had the producers believing he'd be a certain type of player and then didn't. Thank you. How many people did I interview for the book? Specifically for the book, I'm not sure. You know, maybe like 15. I don't know. But I pull from, you know, I've done hundreds of interviews, not specifically for the book, and I was free to pull from all of those too. So, like, for instance, I did an interview with Rob specifically for the book, but I'd also done 2 or 3 previous interviews with Rob. And he also did like a 20-year anniversary special or whatever that I pulled from like 5 different sources for Rob quotes. And I think I only pulled one from the interview I did specifically with him for the book. So yeah, kind of all over the place. Did Taylor's story inspire me to finish the book? It inspired me to kind of start writing the book, to be honest, because I didn't start writing it until after the season. Do I maintain any contact with the publisher? Have they stopped talking to me? I still am chatting with the marketing team. They actually sent me somewhat recently the cover for the paperback version that should be coming like springish, like when they wanted to release the book. And how it now says USA Today bestselling author TaranArmstrong. Pretty cool. Okay. Let's see. Some more from Twitch and YouTube. Which part of the publishing process was the most unexpected for me? You know, I want to be. I've been pretty transparent about the process. I think the way I would say this is that, like, it was, for me, a lot more hands-off than I expected. I expected them to really, like, take me by the hand and, like, drag me through the process to the point where I was worried about it. And then my experience of it was much more so like, hey guys, where am I supposed to go? That was surprising to me. But that might have just been my experience. I think, you know, people have different experiences. There are different publishers and different people that work at different publishers. And then also, I was in a situation where, like, I was kind of taking the lead with marketing for the most part because I already had an audience. So, it was a lot. Have I played Mugenics? No, but I'm interested. It's not like my favorite style of game necessarily, but I feel like I want to try it. What was my routine while recording the audiobook? Vocal exercises, specialties, certain room temperature. So I did it at a recording studio. I had done a bunch of prep. Like, I'd taken things, you know, I was ready for my voice to, like, give out or something. And then I literally didn't need anything but water. We just stomped through it, like, 3 days early, finished. Only ever just drank some water. I needed nothing of the things I prepped for. It was, it might have just been I just might have gotten lucky. I was really, like, expecting sinuses to be a problem, but they weren't. So, luckily, nothing really was a problem. Any regrets? Did I leave anything on the cutting room floor I wish I hadn't? No. I submitted a book that was almost twice as long as the one that I had proposed, expecting things to potentially get cut. And instead of cutting things, I added a couple more. So, no, not really. Would I ever write another book? Yes. Next question. Are you still considering writing again in the fiction genre? Yes to both. I would love to write another book. I would love to write fiction. I'm not sure when, and I'm not sure how. But I do want to at some point. I don't know if it's going to be like near future or way in the future. And I don't really have any expectations of it like actually happening, but I definitely want to try at some point. Did anyone reach out to me about the book that I wasn't expecting or I was surprised by? I don't think so. Not a lot of people reached out, to be honest. Not that I'm like easy to get a hold of. Yeah, no, I don't have any good examples. Have you ever been contacted to participate in or contribute to any upcoming documentaries about the show? No. What do I think the future of Big Brother is going to be? Hopefully it's, good. There's some not great stuff going on with Paramount, that I don't love, but when you're head of Boulder, people come to you. I tried climbing for the first time this year. It was really fun. I understand about the bouldering. Talk more. Nice. I do not watch the challenge now. Did I like Fishback's book? Yes. I actually really liked it. I binged it in a day. I did not listen to the audiobook yet, though. I really want to listen to it. He's got multiple narrators, and they're like high-quality narrators. I feel like it's going to be peak. By the way, I am going to do a book club for Steven's book on my Patreon. For those that are reading it or have read it, and you want to talk about it with like-minded fellows. Nobody asked what I played Big Booty with Rachel and Brendan here in Birmingham. That's funny. Am I going to the RHP LA live show? I plan to. I haven't made actual concrete plans yet, which is a slight problem because it's approaching. But it's close enough that I should be able to make it. Okay. Back to Patreon. On season 27... Oh, I see. Let's see. Did I tell many people I was writing the book during the process? No. I told very few people. I told literally nobody before it was sold. So from conception to writing the first 3 chapters plus the intro and the proposal to shopping it, I say literally nobody. I told some people. I told people not involved in the Big Brother community. Like none of the podcasters, none of the players knew. Until I officially sold it and we like signed the contract. And then I remember I talked to Taylor, who was one of the first people I talked to. And she was so excited. I talked to Jacob Jones. And we had a lovely moment because he was getting into his music production stuff at the time. And I remember, like, because I podcast with Rob, I don't remember when it was. I was doing a podcast with him occasionally. And I was like, well, I'll talk to Rob, like, after this podcast. I don't need to, like, call him or, like, do anything specific to tell him. But then, like, a couple of podcasts went by, and he was always so busy after the podcast. I was like, So Rob ended up being one of the last people I told, like, on record kind of thing. And I've told this story before, but like it was very funny because he was like, "Oh, that's so weird," because, and now you guys know, he was like, "I've also been working on a book." Which is very funny because we had a very similar conversation when I told him I was moving to San Diego. He was still living in LA at the time. And I said, "Hey, I'm moving to San Diego." And he was like, "Wow, that's so weird because I'm moving to North Carolina." But even then, I only told the people I thought were like absolutely necessary for the most part. I did not want the news to spread. I wanted to keep it as contained as possible. Because I really cared a lot about the release being like this big surprise, event. And also like I didn't want anybody. I had no idea what may or may not happen. I didn't want like anybody being like, "What's this book you're writing?" and then trying to get involved in the process or anything like that. So pretty much the people I interviewed and a couple of others, and that was basically it until really like right up until the release. And then even then, what happened was they had accidentally, or not accidentally, but basically when they send the info to the retailers about the book, a lot of them just auto-populate a store page. So like the book was up on Amazon for like, I think like upwards of like 2 months before I announced it. And there were a couple people that found the page. And I talked to my agent about it. And we were discussing like, what should I do? It was like, well, we could just announce it now. And I was like, I don't like that. I'd like to like have a big announcement. But I also don't want to like, if people ask me about it, I don't want to lie, And so the conclusion we came to is that like, that basically I'd be like a politician that's imminently announcing that I'm going to run for office, but is not going to actually confirm it if ever asked about it. Which really mostly meant that I would just ignore it if somebody asked in chat. But that didn't happen. Outside of, again, there were a couple people that like found the page itself. But people kept quiet about it, which is nice. Cadence is super helpful. I'm a chronic over-researcher and underdo the actual writing. Yeah, I would say getting to the actual writing. Because I also researched a bunch, and I often felt like I need to keep researching. There is a certain level of research you just need to do, but like for me, once I reached a certain level of research where I was like, I have a vague idea of the outline of what I want to write now. I did keep researching. But I wasn't as invested in the research at that point, and so I did slow down, and eventually I started actually writing. And what I think I eventually found was that like getting going, do the writing, find the gaps where you still feel like you need to do some research to fill those holes. And then that helps you point your research in the directions that you need to go. And then once you've done your thing, this is how I did it at least. Once you've written out your narrative, do another pass of research trying to disprove your narrative. If that makes sense. Try to research against what you wrote. Because again, that's a very targeted way of like improving, of finding the relevant information that you might want. And then once you've done that, you can kind of like, all right, I think I did it. The amount of content on your Patreon is amazing. Thank you. Was I actively writing during the Big Brother seasons? Honestly, I don't remember. I had one major period of writing that was, I think, prior to. I had two major periods of writing. They were not during Big Brother seasons, but I was writing during 25. Just not as intensely, I think. I don't remember anymore. It was really a blur. I got into binge writing mode like 2 separate times. Do I think new house guests will have read my book? Well, one house guest at least. I think the odds of one house guest having read my book, I would say like 10%. The way they cast the seasons now, there were a couple people in 25 and 26 who knew the podcast. There was nobody in 27, if I'm recalling correctly, that knew the podcast. No, there was somebody that mentioned it, but like not enough, like nobody who like would talk about me. Like there's multiple layers. You know of the podcast is the first layer. You're a heavy listener of the podcast is the second layer. You know me is the third layer. And then you know me well enough to have bought and read my book is like the fourth layer. Now, there are potential subversions to that whole process, which is like, I'm doing research for this show and this book popped up on Google. But I think 10% is not. I think that might be a good guess. Do we have any updates on the BB house next year? Not that I'm aware of at the moment. If House of Villains goes super mainstream, they may have to cut back on the campy stuff. I'm curious to see what that show is like. What do you mean I don't know how? Based on this book, I'll definitely be able to write another book, even if in a different genre. I think mostly what I mean is like, when I wrote this book, it was very much like, hey, I'm committing to doing this, and I'm not sure when I will have the time to commit to doing that again. as like I do have like other life commitments essentially. I'm just not sure. The how is more about like how will I have the time and the mental space. I could theoretically be doing it now, but it's like I don't think I'm ready yet, and I don't think I have like I've got big things coming up on top of obviously another Big Brother season eventually. So plus right now I'm really focused on the Patreon for the most part. Which I've really been loving, so I should write How to Win Big Brother. I don't think I could do that. I have thought about before, I've mentioned this, I've thought about making a video that's like, you know, top 10 things you should know before going on the show. But it's also just like, I've never been on the show before. I do think I can give probably better advice than a lot of former players could. I do genuinely think that. But I don't think that my opinion on that gives me the authority. You know what I mean? To actually do it. If somebody didn't directly ask me. And there are certainly players who could give better advice than me. I mean, let's be real. I think there's a good percentage of people watching this stream right now that could give better advice than a lot of former house guests. But you know, as a writer myself, I'm a researcher, so therefore all I do is write. You should carve out specific time to write or do research for your writing, so you're always writing. And that's a good way to think about it. That's not what I did. Because I did not write in a healthy, sustainable way. I just dedicated my entire day to writing and researching all at the same time every day for months. All right, back to YouTube and Twitch for a moment. What was my favorite season to write about? 24. Listening to the audiobook for Steven's book, it's amazing. That's exciting. Do I give out books as gifts? Well, actually, yes, I've given a few gifts of my book out. But I have like 30 of them at my house. You can see roughly like 10 of them right there, I think. What would I rate Night at Seven Kingdoms? Right now, like a solid 9 out of 10. Although, it could be an 8 out of 10. It's like on the verge. It really depends on how it wraps up. I really like it. Have I ever had dreams that I was a Big Brother house guest? Yes, during a season, for sure. Like my recap of Beast Games. Beast Games has been fun to cover, I'm not gonna lie. People have their opinions on the show and on Mr. Beast himself and so on and so forth, and I fully understand and get those opinions. But as a show to cover, I actually just really enjoy it. There's a lot of things to consider about how they structure it and its unique nature, and it's been fun. By the way, for those that haven't been following the Beast Games coverage, Mr. Jimmy Beast himself apparently has been watching, so if you've ever wanted to see me interview Mr. Beast, that seems to be a possibility in the near future. We'll see. I don't think any progress has been made. It's just like he literally commented saying he would love to chat about it. Am I writing a sequel to my book? Not at the moment, but it's certainly not something I would say never to. Do I think about doing that type of book for Survivor? I'll say this. I haven't read Rob's book. But my understanding is that it is quite different from mine in its approach, I believe. So, you know, theoretically there's space to still, not that I couldn't anyway, but like but the biggest thing holding me back, I would say, is that like I just don't have that same personal connection or journey with Survivor that I do Big Brother. So if I did write a book about Survivor, it would have to be by necessity a bit more academic, and more reliant on those interviews and research and stuff like that. And I'm not sure that I could make it. I'm not sure that I could write a book that I enjoyed writing as much about Survivor. And so I'm not sure that I ever would. Research against what you've written is really underrated tactic. Yeah, I think so. I mean, I don't know if it's underrated, but I think for me, it's something that I rate very highly. How many new house guests watch Rob as a podcast to get ready for Big Brother? That's what it's like usually. I think the number's been going down. I think they've been casting less super fans. Wait till the book gets turned into a movie. I don't think it could. I don't think it's adaptable. Here to say I adore you from the UK. Thank you, Alicia. Hope you've enjoyed. If you haven't checked out the Patreon, where I watch Traders UK, I'm a big fan of it. Would I never do Big Brother myself? Probably not. I think I could make ways to lose Big Brother. That's a good. Seth. You in marketing? I don't think you should doubt your authority unless you wanted to make a whole compendium, but we've seen house guests repeatedly get cast, watch YouTube videos, and know nothing fun. That's why I've thought about making a video like that. Is like, you know, those people that are just, you know, searching for clips on YouTube, like, give them something to work with. You know what I mean? But, you know, the genuine flip side of that is like, if people go into that house and they start quoting my video, oh, well, Taran said you shouldn't do this, and then that leads them to make a really unpopular decision, everyone's going to blame me. They're all going to say, you fucked it up, dude. You're the reason. You're the reason that the fan favorites, Mr. Kitten, lost Big Brother. I'd have to hang my head in shame. General book recommendation, Dungeon Crawler Carl. It's a must listen, that is all. I have listened to many of those books, actually. I did have to take a break from them because I was binging them too much. And they got very samey and I completely lost the plot. They are very good. And I checked out the authors because I saw him do a panel with Brandon Sanderson, and he mentioned his Patreon, and I was like, oh, he has a Patreon as an author. That's so interesting. And I checked out his Patreon, and oh boy, that dude is rich. That guy is successful. He is a self-published author, I believe. And he really broke out with Dungeon Crawler Carl and is a really impressive Patreon. And it's one of those things that's like, that's inspiring, you know? Were there any specific challenges I faced with essentially having to pick apart real people's stories and choose what to use to tell the broader story? Any specific challenges? There were a couple of things. Like, I feel like kind of by necessity, I had to kind of chop some of Derek's story. Not chop it. It was never part of the plan, really. Because by the time we get there, it is so much the culmination of, like, because it is the pinnacle of, like, what we had seen. Like, it was season 16, and he just did so well. I mean, it's really like the curse of Derek in general, is that he was so good that everyone thought it was boring. And so part of the reason people found it boring was because it was like not a repetition, because it was a sort of a perfection of what had come before, but like I can tell Dan's story in season 10 because he subverts, while he uses everything that came before, he subverts all of it and does so in a really wild and unique way to get to the end. Derek's story is much more one of mastering these elements and then just running it down. And it was, I would say, I felt like I underserved his importance in the scheme of the show. Not on purpose, like I was trying to diminish his importance, but like there just wasn't, I couldn't find there wasn't a version of the story where I was able to do him justice. And I felt similarly with Rachel, especially when she came back for 27. I was like, man, you know, like I wish I could have done Rachel more justice. Janelle is another example of somebody that I was like able to talk about a little bit, but like you only read this book, you wouldn't know how much of a superstar she is. And that's just the thing, you know, there are too many people, too many stories that I just couldn't fit all of them in without completely overloading you, you know? It's 25 years of history with a different cast every year. What's going on with Jacob Jones? I talked to him actually when I recorded the audiobook, and he's on the grind. He's making music. I highly recommend everyone check out his music. It's very good. It's called Air, H-E-I-R. I think proving the thought process you have wrong is also super helpful for reflection and being able to deeper understand what's going on. I agree. What's my best advice for someone who wants to write a book? Genuinely, the best advice is to just try it. Just start writing something. And you will probably read it, go, this is terrible, scrap it. And if you do that, good. You're supposed to do that. Do it again. And then keep doing it until you have something that you actually think, oh, this is kind of good. And then this is a process that I got very lucky to be able to bypass, but then sort of the next stage is generally to then use something that you've written to find an agent. But the best advice is to genuinely just go. And honestly, maybe second best advice is to read a lot. I think the more you read, the more it'll come naturally to you to write. Is there a lot of grossness in United Seven Kingdoms? It's a little gross. Not as gross as like Game of Thrones. But there are some things it doesn't shy away from for sure. Beast Games is better watching with me. Cast members have ChatGPT now. They don't need books. Very true. Can't wait to see my reactions to more Traders UK. I'm excited for it. There's a lot you can say about Derek, but I think it would be more so highlighting how he as a person benefits from traditional white masculinity, which could feel like downplaying his strategy and skill. I'm not saying we shouldn't call those things out, but the point stood without it. Yeah. Also, I think from what I've followed of his career, Derek is far more ethical than most people in the true crime industry, and it could feel antithetical to the work he's tried to do. I haven't followed his true crime stuff, but it doesn't surprise me that you say that. Having talked to him myself, for as much, I think, crap as he sometimes gets in certain communities, some of it certainly, to some degree, justified. I think the Mike Bloom tweet is very funny. I think he is, for the most part, just kind of like a decent dude. And I think also, like, this is key for me in terms of like the people I interact with. He strikes me as a guy who tries. Even if you don't like agree with his conclusion, it doesn't feel, and again, I don't even watch his true crime stuff, but like, it doesn't feel like he's not trying, which is maybe a low bar to cross, but in today's society, it certainly feels like a lot. When will I stream Blood on the Clock Tower next? I don't know. I haven't been invited in a while. I don't know if they've been running or if Dwight just stopped asking me because I kept saying no. But I'm open to hopping on at some point. I do miss it a bit. Although I will say I've enjoyed my weekends. It had been years since I had like totally open weekends, and so it's genuinely been very nice. And I apologize to those who miss things like Goose Goose and Blood on the Clock Tower, but it's been very nice to have weekends free again. And I'm able to do a bunch of work on the Patreon during the week, which just kind of fits my schedule a bit better. So, that's kind of, I've said it before, but that's kind of the place to be at this point, for especially in the off season, for coverage of stuff and content in general. How did Jared Fields do on Beast Games? I don't think I even saw him. I think he was out immediately, unfortunately. Any movies I'm rooting for this upcoming Oscars award show? Check out The Tastemakers, by the way. It's a podcast I do on We Know Scripted TV, the sister podcast of Rob's podcast. I do it with Grace. It's a good time. Got a good schedule going for it. But I have 2 movies this year. 10 out of 10 movies are very rare for me. They usually happen once every like 5 years plus. I have 2 movies that I gave a 10 out of 10 to this year. Sinners and Train Dreams. Those are my 2. I think they're great. I think a lot of movies this year are great, though. I wouldn't even say those are the only two I'd recommend. Which Big Brother seasons do I think have the best strategy, and which seasons do I find the most entertaining? Best strategy is tough. If we're talking about like most people that are actively playing in a self-interested way, I think we're probably talking about like BB10, BB7. BB17 could be up there. 15. I would say that those are the most amount of strategy happening that aren't like super, super top heavy. And then entertaining, I think BB10, BB7. I often think they coincide is my answer there. Although I do think that BB27 was a unique blend for me of terrible strategy and entertaining. And I don't think those two go hand in hand that often. Two years past BB Can cancellation. How do I feel about it now? Would I be up for it returning with daily? Wow, I don't even remember what it was called. Daily dumps. Digital dailies. Or rather later with a better network. I personally don't want the show if it doesn't have live feeds. That's how I feel about it. And other people can feel differently. I'm not like against the show returning. Just for me personally, it's not a show I would really care to watch without live feeds. Unless they completely like revamped it in some other way. But I would love for it to come back with live feeds. Excited that after this month, the Twitch will be moving to Patreon instead. Nice. Welcome, Megan. When you get there, there's tons of stuff there for you already. Thank you, by the way, to Blurbs, CD Fan, Electricity, Miss Calamity, McGronit, Mario, and Cito for the Twitch subscriptions. And don't worry, Patreon is definitely, if you have to choose one, Patreon is definitely the place to be. But I will not neglect you forever, Twitch and YouTube. Survivor's coming back this week. I'll be here for that. And of course, during Big Brother seasons, we're always really kicking it. Train Dreams won Best Director at the Independent Spirit Awards. I think I saw that, yeah. Sinners was great. Did I see Vince's interview with Julie? I did not. I heard that it happened, but no offense to Julie, but I haven't really watched many of her interviews. I feel like they are not in my area of interest generally. But again, certainly not yucking on anyone's yum if it is your area of interest. You love it even with the dailies, but it should have been full feeds. I agree. Not that I loved it with the dailies, but it should have been full feeds. Having listened to the BB Can 10 coverage on RHP, it reminded me of BB 27, how restless it was. BB Can 10 is one of the best Big Brother scenes of all time. You've been wondering what the book trilogy I used to have behind me on the shelves was? It was the Farseer trilogy. It actually is still down there. It's hard to see right now, but I still have it in those shelves. My favorite book series, Realm of the Elderlings. Loved Bone Temple. Bone Temple was good. Am I ever live on Patreon? How do we know when you'll be live? Actually, Patreon, the patrons can correct me if I'm wrong. They can tell me in the chat right now. In many ways, I think the live content on Patreon is maybe easier because I'm generally setting up. I mean, it's easier for you guys, harder for me. But I'm setting up the live page ahead of time. So like this stream was scheduled. I scheduled this stream sometime this morning. And so on the Patreon page, if you decide to be notified, it tells you like, hey, there's a live stream at X o'clock today. And so as opposed to Twitch where you just get a notification when I go live. And a notification 5 minutes before. Look at that. And when I actually go live. Okay. Probably as many notifications as you want. On the latest episode of Beast Games, what was the point of all the cash moving around in bags since there were counters on each person's room? I think they just liked the visual. It's like how, okay, this is very niche, but I love the show The Pit. People know this. And I also found this YouTuber, Dr. Mike, via his reactions to The Pit. He was actually a huge inspiration for the content that I made, reacting to The Genius on my YouTube channel, and then eventually became all of the reaction content I'm doing on Patreon. And so I watch his reactions to The Pit, which I love. And he's always on them. Because he's like, obviously loves the show, thinks it's super accurate. But one thing that always bothers him is how they never close the doors to the rooms or like shut the curtains. He's like, give them some privacy. And I realized recently, I was like, Dr. Mike, I figured this out. I think I know why they don't. I think this is on purpose. Because if they closed the curtains and the doors and made it quiet and private, you lose the sense of raw urgency that exists on The Pit. Because you can constantly see behind them all of the stuff that's continuing to happen. It's a show that takes place in real time. Really helps ground you into that space and that time in a way that if you were able to quarantine it off, would feel so much less connected. And so I think that's why they do it. And so that is my answer to also why on Beast Games they have them physically move cash instead of just having the numbers go up. Did I like Jack O'Connell more as Remick or Jimmy? Oh, geez. I'm not sure I know what you mean. I'm sure those are characters, but okay. You mean as in Sinners or in Bone Temple. I got you. I promise I got that before the comment said it. Although I did Google it. I liked him more as Remick. Although he was great as Jimmy as well. You're the one who read your book is the 100th book of 2025. Oh, look at that. Congratulations on reading 100 books. Happy to have had mine be the 100th. I got you back into the traders. It's boring without my commentary. Thank you. Because I sometimes agree. But again, I do highly recommend the UK version at this point. How many superfans would I like Big Brother to cast per season? How many recruits, etc.? I don't think that you need to have a specific criteria. But I would like people who are familiar with the show and the concepts of gameplay, because they're more likely to play aggressively, in my opinion. I think that recruits are way more likely to play conservatively unless they're like, there's two kinds of recruits. The more common kind of recruit is somebody that like has a great interview, great personality. They get on the show and they sit around because they're not ready for a game like that. There's a rare kind of recruit that is your golden standard of recruit that gets on the show and doesn't give a fuck and gets into all kinds of mess and drama. That's the kind of recruit you want. But that's hard to find because you don't know which ones are going to be duds and which ones are going to be all over the place. And then there's an even rarer kind of recruit that gets into the game and plays it hard and well. And those are also really great. Those are like your Anthony Douglases. You could even say Paul to some degree. And when I say recruit, I mean people who don't know the show very well. Because obviously fans of the show can still be recruited. Super fans, on the other hand, also can be duds. You know who I'm talking about. And I'm not talking about Vince, by the way. He was not a dud, casting-wise. But you also get lots, I would say, of Vinces, Morgans, Quinn. Like him or hate him, he made an impact, right? Like, they're just more likely to care and to play. And so I think they're more entertaining on the whole. Celeb UK or Civilian UK? Celeb UK was great. Civilian UK season 4 was one of my favorite seasons. Or is my favorite season of Traders, period, at the moment. The pit is awesome. I agree. Pit is awesome. It's modeled after, I'm not going to pronounce that hospital. Yeah, I love the little Pittsburgh historical facts they see it in. Streamers to me seem like a good path for recruits because they already have the capacity for being on camera for long periods of time and can get relaxed a bit more easily. That's fair. I mean, that's what Morgan was, right? Yeah, I mean, in general, streamers are very used to... Sorry, it's getting even darker. Streamers are very used to, entertaining in real time. So, they're probably going to be able to keep up like Morgan did. I have seen Mad Men. It's a great show. I don't love it as much as most, I think, but it's definitely good. How do I think Traders US can improve casting and format next season in the future? I think... I've been on record about this for a little while now. I think when a lot of people talk about a show's problems, they talk about casting and they talk about format. And I think those two things are very valid, to talk about when it comes to problems you have with a show. However, I think personally that the biggest issue with many reality shows has nothing to do with those two things and everything to do with their editing. And I think that the Traders US versus the Traders UK made that abundantly clear to me, because they're essentially the same format. They copy everything down to the letter of, everything. But one of them is great with civilians who don't naturally make great TV. And the other one is kind of lame with a bunch of over-the-top amazing reality TV casting. And it all comes down to the editing, in my opinion. I think so many of these shows just need to edit their stories and their characters better instead of trying to force feed narratives. I think that's the problem with Modern Survivor at the moment. I think it's the problem with Traders US. And I think that there are a lot of things that these shows can do just by changing the editing. And I think, and to its credit, I think the Traders is very good. The Traders US, I would say, the Traders in general, is kind of like the Big Brother Canada of the reality TV world, in that they can make really cool moments. They try hard to make really cool moments. They make use of music really well. And they make the thing feel epic while still feeling campy. Survivor used to be good at that, but has become too formulaic. But where the Traders US, I think, falters, and the Traders UK really succeeds, is that in the Traders US, like I said, they force feed these narratives of like, this person bad, this person good. Root for this person, not for this person. And they tell the story often from like a singular perspective. In the UK, what I've seen much more of is that you get multiple perspectives. And it's not just like them explaining their thoughts, but it feels like the perspective of the editing, that like third person omniscient perspective kind of thing, genuinely moves around instead of being like, for instance, Traders US, spoilers, this season, the US Traders so clearly has been from the perspective of Rob the whole time. Everything you saw was through the perspective of Rob, down to Rob Sesternino being a smart person that had to go, down to Colton being a hero ally that eventually needed to be dropped, down to Tiffany being a villain, down to, so on and so forth, right? Like, everybody's character was edited in relation to how they related to Rob. In the Traders UK, that doesn't happen nearly as much. And I think Survivor has a different issue, which is that they prioritize short-term story beats, and don't cater to long-term trajectories. So like on one episode, and I think Traders does this to some degree too, like just randomly people will be like, actually, I think this. But Survivor, I think, has really been guilty of it in the sense that like, you'll randomly enter an episode and it'll be like, so these 4 people are working together. And you're like, since when? And it's only relevant for that episode. And then the next episode of Survivor, it's like, so those 4 people were never working together. It's like, what? Just saw I'm covering Genius Season 3 on Patreon. Yeah, I've been enjoying it. Genius is, yes, a great example of good character editing. Although I will say, I think Season 3 has been one of the more lopsided in its edit. For good reason. Traders UK has way more dynamic characters. Yep, yeah. Do I collect anything? Not really. I want it to be books. I want to build a bookshelf behind me. That might happen in this off-season. We'll see. Love Island Season 7 was an interesting case because to me it genuinely seemed like they were editing the show based on social media reaction to the previous batch of episodes. So the narrative is so unclear that people are just constantly speculating on what really happened. Yeah. All right. Any final questions before we wrap up? And let me know in the Patreon chat if you would like to hop on a call or something once I end YouTube and Twitch. Otherwise, we can just all wrap up here. Do I have a Survivor 50 winner pick? Honestly, I've been trying to avoid Survivor 50 press as much as possible. So I don't know really anything about the pregame alliances or anything else. So I feel like I can't make a good educated guess. But I also inevitably through osmosis see people on social media and different I just feel like there's too much out in the air for me. That's why we did the draft so early. Hop on a call. So during the book club, I was taking calls like we do in the patron Q&A on RHAP about the book. So that is available. But usually I yap so much that people are like, oh, I'm good. Is there a question or story I wanted to be asked / told in this process that hasn't been yet? No, I think honestly, I've kind of talked it to death at this point. In a very satisfying way. And the most rewarding thing to see usually is people engage with the writing. When people mention oh, this part I loved for this reason. It's really cool. Probably answer what's up with the treadmill. Just trying to be more active, trying to be moving more. When I do 2-hour, 3-hour streams, I'm just sitting the whole time. It's, not that healthy. So good to get some steps in, just stay non-sedentary. Did I get out of the writing experience what I thought I would? Kind of no, in the sense that I enjoyed it more than I thought I would. I thought I would. I was very nervous about it beforehand. And I thought it would be hard but rewarding. And instead, it was easy but rewarding. Easy because I was enjoying it, I guess. I think I feared it would be and this is what school does to you. You know what I mean? School just trains you to feel like everything you do related to school, like writing, is just gonna suck. But when you're actually writing something you care about and are interested in and have a good time doing it, it's actually really fun. And you never get to experience that in school because you're constantly doing assignments for other people. with deadlines and requirements. It's the same thing with reading. People hate reading because they were forced to read certain books in school on a timeline and have to like talk about specific things. Like you can't just read for enjoyment. Then people are like, I hate reading. That's why like good teachers are so valuable. Do I think I'd ever teach a class? I've thought about it actually. Not like I could at the moment, but like I've thought about what it'd be like to go in that direction. I think it would be very fun. Well, genuinely, Caden says, please do, we'll pay good money. Genuinely, I just feel like the amount of work it would take to get there would probably not be worth the pay, unfortunately. So for me, it would be more of like a retirement. It would be more of like I've made enough money to stop working. Now I can do something that doesn't pay much, but would be fun and give back and valuable, hopefully, kind of thing. Very excited to potentially do a thesis track because it's your own curriculum, and the professor I've spoken to is really interested in the reality TV concept. Yeah, there you go. You'd be an amazing former teacher. Thank you, Reagan. Sad but true, yeah. Stopped reading for pleasure for so long and was told to have teachers' opinions. Glad you rediscovered your love of reading after college, yeah. I did hear about Josh playing in La Casa de los Famosos. I don't know. I tried to watch it. I said this the other night. I tried to watch it, but there are no English subtitles. At least there weren't when I looked. All right. Who from Big Brother would I like to see on Traders US? Well, there's some easy answers. Taylor. But I'd also love to see Hannah. I thought she was so fun on the Mafia game we played. But you know, there's tons of people. All right, that's what I got. I'm gonna end the Twitch and YouTube streams. I'll hang on for a moment here on Patreon and then wrap up. Thank you all for joining. I hope you enjoyed the Q&A stream. You're always free to ask questions about the book at any point, but I wanted to do one kind of final wrap up that included Twitch and YouTube, so that you guys had a chance. The VOD will stay up. It will also be video on YouTube. The VOD of this on YouTube will stay up, so feel free to watch it whenever. But yeah, that's what I got. Thank you all so much for joining, and I will see all of you very soon, actually, for Survivor. See you then.